Welcome to Radar Cop Podcast. I am your host, Al Martinez, also known as Alpha Mike. You are listening to episode 340, Leave the Mag, Take the Block. Today we're going to explore the Glock magazine, the probably things you didn't know about it, and how to take care of it, and shelf life. We're going to talk about things like that. But before we move on to that, there's a lot of things happening out in the real world, and we like to explore the real world at every opportunity we get. And the question is, with the issue of Ukraine, is that the end of the war between Russia and Ukraine? Or is it the beginning of possibly World War III? People are starting to wonder what in the hell's going on. Apparently now Russia wants to continue the war. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But the art of the deal is happening. And speaking of the art of the deal, Rapid Response 47 has instructed our United States military to bomb the crap out of the Houthis. So they're learning all about how to duck for cover. We live in dangerous times, and we need to be very vigilant. People over in Iran have been threatening, saying stupid things, thinking they are empowered. Keep your head on a swivel and be at the ready in case your country, the United States of America, needs the militia, the armed militia. But while we kind of explore that, we're going to talk today about guns, and specifically the Glock gun and the magazine. I recently saw a video where an individual took his magazine, similar to this. Give me a second. And if you're watching on the video part, there's a little bead there, and they clicked on it. Then they pulled out the slide, and the spring went flying. So the issue is that something that you should be doing? We're going to talk about that and explore much more. But if you are in the Tampa Bay area and looking for gun training, look no further. You can call us at RadarCopTAC.com, RadarCopTAC.com, where we teach intermediate or beginners, advanced, pistol, rifle, revolver, shotgun, carbine, AR, whatever you're looking for. Self-protection. You just want to know what you can and cannot do with a gun based on Florida statute. We can help. It's as easy as giving us a call or looking us up online at RadarCopTAC.com or calling us at 813-942-7400. And if you want to hear all our podcasts from number 1 to number 340, send us an email at RadarCopPodcast, all one word, at proton, PROTON.me. So, before we continue, let's dive into the Word of God in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5, and it says, if you lack wisdom, you shall ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And as you know, we started a program here. These are the elements that we talk about on this podcast. We talk about firearms, self-protection. We dive into the law enforcement realm and what's going on with it. And wellness. Wellness is covered with health, fitness, and spiritual. And so I started a segment for the wellness also recently called My Life. And it's about my life and the walk in Christianity. And I welcome you to listen to it. Less than 15 minutes. It's not really scheduled like this regular podcast that is every Wednesday they launch out. Whenever the inspiration comes, we'll put one together. So I encourage you to listen, and I hope you will stay tuned. Today's episode is number 340, and we're talking about the magazine, a Glock magazine. The name of the episode, Leave the Mag, Take the Block. It's time to get Small Bus. You are listening to episode 340, Leave the Mag and Take the Block. We're going to explore the magazine. Now, before I get started, let me make a little statement about the magazine. When I was on duty, when I was working, I had a Glock 23, which is a 40 caliber Glock, and multiple thousands and thousands of rounds I've shot in that Glock during the course of that I had it in my career, and never had a hiccup, never had a failure to feed or anything. The only thing that I did have just one time, I kept on pulling the trigger. We were doing live fire, and nothing was happening. And I kept on doing a tap rack shoot operation, thinking something was wrong with the bullet. And I did it again, second time. By the time I got to the third time, I said, let me just toss the magazine. And when I did throw out the magazine and reinserted a new one, the old one fell on the ground and the spring popped out. And I said, what the hell happened there? And that would be my first experience with the Glock magazine. Excuse me. As we go down this rabbit hole, I'll talk a little bit more about it. But now getting back to the Glock and their magazines. With the first generation Glock, the magazine, you have to refer to my obstacle gun here. The magazine itself, as you see this weapon here, and it's not a Glock, it's a CZ. When you grab the magazine and you went to take it out, instead of it popping out so easily here, in the first generation Glock, you had to yank it out. And mostly that was because the first generation Glock was created for the Austrian army, and the concept was not to lose your magazine in battle. So you ripped it out, you kind of saved it and reholstered another one. Well, it didn't work in American gun-toting society, so they did the mag release, putting some weight on the magazine, because the actual Glock magazine is, and this is not a Glock magazine, but God, it looks like one, is of course that polymer plastic. So when the magazine would drop out, you had to pull it out in the first generation. So the second one, they had to actually put some steel in the inside of the magazine to give it some weight and to protect the rounds, keeping it more confined inside the magazine well itself. And with that little added weight that they put on it, it was easier for the magazine to slide out. And 5 generations of Glock, we're still doing the same thing. Within the magazine, we have 5 parts, of course, which is the little pin on the back, on the bottom of the magazine, and there is I should just hold the magazine in my hand at this point. And you're probably wondering, doesn't he have a Glock? Yeah, he got a Glock. So they're all locked up in a safe and a box in a safe, and I wasn't going to go through all that nonsense. So here's the magazine, and as you can see, there's that dot right there. That's the pin in order to release this. And then there's this slide, and I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to have the magazine flying around. And you pull this off, and then underneath this slide piece here, if you're watching on the video content, you can see what I'm doing. Then there's a small plate inside that is keeping the spring in place. And then you have the spring itself and the follower, which is way up here on the top where the bullet is, right? Holding the spring. And it gives it that spring action. So there's the bullets, as they cycle off through the weapon itself, another one moves up and goes through the follower into the pistol. So I'm going to leave the magazine out in case I got to refer to it again. So there are 5 components in it. Now, Glock really doesn't recommend that you fool around with the magazine itself if you don't really know what you're doing. Now, there are videos out there you could see and all that. For some people, and I said I saw a video where a guy was fooling around with a magazine and he punctured the little pin and he pushed it out with his thumb and the spring went flying. And obviously he was just being nosy what was going on. But you do have to do maintenance. And because that's what happened to me in the story that I told you, that the magazine had apparently the follower, when the round launched out, the spring kind of twisted up, and from the bottom part as well, it started coming out. I don't know. I really don't know how. I was in the middle of shooting, but it was coming apart. And when it landed on the concrete, it's when the slide came off and the magazine popped out. But obviously, internally, something was going on with that spring, and I wasn't able to get a round off. So my lack, at that point, I might have had this Glock 23, maybe 12, maybe 13 years. And it was an original. And at that point, I had never done maintenance to it. Mostly left it inside the magazine holster. But, and that's another question we're going to look at. Should I leave my magazines fully loaded? Boy, we can start 100 blogs. We can start wars worse than the one in Ukraine and Russia over this one subject. But we're going to dive into that too. Should I keep my magazines fully loaded like this, fully loaded all the time? Or should I take out a couple of rounds? And that was the logic. So anyway, getting back to my point, the magazine had its deficiencies, and one of them, there was dirt, grime, and dust in there. And if you don't believe me, if you are an active carrier, concealed carrier, and you have the same holster that you carry, I encourage you just to grab a little flashlight, pull it out, and look inside the actual bottom part of the holster and all around the crevices, and you're going to find dirt, dust, all kinds of creatures living in there. And that also gets inside your weapon as well and your magazines. So, and in Florida, we have a lot of sand. If you haven't noticed, a lot of sand in Florida. So sand is a gun buster, I like to call it. So you really want to do more maintenance. Then I was really, at the time, not that encouraged to do until that incident occurred. And at the time when that happened, Pistol Pete the gunsmith that's down in Miami was my armorer. And he said, dude, you should have switched. You should have had brand new magazines. And I said, come again? Because, dude, you've had this gun for over a decade. You don't have new magazines? You should. And he was right. Because the cost for these Glock magazines are almost next to nothing. And he was absolutely correct. I should have had something that, instead of 3, 6. And what's better than 6? 9. And what's better than 9? 12. We could be here all day. You get the point, right? And so let's look at a couple more things, and then we're going to start diving into some of these questions I got for you. So when you do your maintenance and you do your cleaning, you're getting the dust, the grime out of there, the dirt, and you're eliminating it. Now, with the issue with the springs, some people think that W40s was created for everything under the sun, including brushing your teeth. But that wouldn't be true. And if you're going to put a little bit of oil, make sure it's a tiny bit. And you might want to even put it on with a cloth, kind of wipe it off. Why? Because oil attracts dirt, grime, and it's almost defeating the purpose. But because the metal spring is in there, they have to put oil on it. So make sure it's just a tiny bit if you're inclined to do so on your maintenance. You have the assembly, how you took it off, you're going to put it on. You got to pay attention to those things. Now, the good thing is that once you put the follower back on, it's on the top. Remember, on the ramp where those bullets are going to go flying off, the follower has to be there, and it will snap into place. And here's the best part. When you put the spring with the follower back in the magazine shell, it can only go in one way. You see, if you put it in the wrong way, the magazine won't go in. The spring, and then you try, and you turn it the other way, it'll go right up the ramp. So it can only go in one way. It's stupid proof. So that's a big plus for the guys that want to do the maintenance. And then you're going to put the other little slide that's on the bottom, the ramp, and you're going to put that pin back on. Now, taking it off, you can use a punch, but remember, once you take out that punch, you got to put your thumb on the back of that magazine, right over it, so it doesn't go flying out, and your magazine goes flying out. So you got to put pressure on it. But if you're so inclined, our friends over at the Glock store have a disassembly for these magazines, and it is $29.95. Magazine disassembly tool, it's called, and looks pretty neat too if you're into that kind of stuff. But you can also use a punch. So the purpose is here to teach yourself how to take that magazine apart. One way, the way you took it out, you're going to reassemble it. You're going to clean it. You're going to dust it. You're going to get all those particles out of there. And then you're going to snap in everything back in place. Remember, the spring can only go in one way. And you're going to tighten it all back in there nice and neat. But there's going to be a question. Let's say it happens what happened to me. It malfunctioned. Would you feel safe with that? Would that bug you? Would that let you, like, what if it doesn't work? For $20 that a Glock magazine costs, you could be saving yourself a big headache. Now, I don't know how long you do routine maintenance on a gun, but some people say, I clean my gun every time I shoot it. Okay, good for you. But we're talking about the magazines. And if you're going to go through all that, and you're going to be back there taking that plate off back and forth every time, you may be causing it not to function properly. So keep that in mind as well. So my point that I'm getting at, if it were to malfunction your magazine, would you get a new one? Or maintenance that one and let it go? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'd maintenance it, and I would put a big T on the side of it, which means training. You go out in the range, that magazine is back in circulation. But if I'm going to carry it, I'll carry a new one. Because when the battle goes down, you want to make sure your weapon does what you paid into it to do. So that's very important. So here's the magical question that I'm going to ask, which can really, really rub people the wrong way. Like I said earlier, this question alone could probably throw us into World War III. And I would really be careful in how you quickly try to respond to this. Dang, I'm trying to fix something here on my port here. Give me 1 second. So the question that I would ask is, would you load your magazines to full capacity and leave it there? Throw it in the safe with the gun? Or would you take out the bullet on a periodic basis and reload it? Or would you take out just a couple of rounds so there's a little bit of play in the spring? Well, like I said, there's a lot of opinions, just like a lot of you-know-whats, and people get red in the face if you say the wrong thing. So I think that's a question I'll leave up to you. Me specifically, I usually don't load it all the way to capacity if it's stored in a safe. The weapon that I'm using as my everyday carry, that will be loaded all the way up to the top. What I do is I rechamber the weapon. So I cycle another round through it, the cycle of operation, and then I'm going to tap it off with another round. And it just makes the spring, activate, so I'm ready to go. Now, there was a gentleman, and I'll try to post that on the bottom of the show notes if I can. He did a YouTube video about 8 years ago. I found it on YouTube. I was very interested, where he loaded his magazines up to full capacity for one of those 3 of those magazines were for 5.5 years. Another 3 were like 4 years, and another 3 were like for 3 years. And he took them out. He took all the springs out, and they're all the same caliber. I think it was 9mm he was using, and from the same type of model weapon. Some were M&Ps, but it was a 9mm M&P, Glock 19, and I can't remember what the other brand he was manufacturer it was. And so he knew the length and everything else, and you could see the one that was chambered for so long, it had lost its bounce, and the spring actually got smaller. So there is something that happens to that metal spring inside with the pressure being there consistently, that bounce or that spring isn't really there any longer. So while keeping the Glock magazine spring compressed for extended period won't significantly harm the magazine itself, repeated compressions and decompression cycles is what leads to the spring fatigue and eventually wear. When to place, if you notice feeding issues or malfunctions, right? You're having these constant malfunctions. That could be an issue with your magazine, or the gun doesn't feed properly. It might be time to replace the magazine or the spring, not just the spring. So you can replace the magazine, and that's what I said. For less, they're like $20. And if you're going to carry and you think there's something might be wrong with the spring, why are you trying to fix it? That's my opinion. Now, I could fix it, I can maintenance it, and I could put a big T with blue tape on the side of the magazine. This is a training magazine. So if something happens out in training, well, no big deal. We can all laugh. But in a real situation, that would be sad. So it is interesting. Glock really recommends that people kind of ignore that area altogether. If they have malfunction issues with their magazine, they should consider getting another magazine. And for the position of a manufacturer, I say, well, that's smart. You spend more money. But it'll be a hell of a testimony that you died for being cheap. So, like I said, if the gun came with 3 magazines and you've had it for a good significant amount of time, purchasing 3 more, and I'll even throw this in, 1 every year, you could afford it. And you could switch out those 3 old ones, make them training magazines, and replace with the new ones for duty. It's just an idea. You can hate me. You can send me those nasty emails. It doesn't matter, because nothing that I said you have to do. You have the option to do it or not do it. I believe the psyche, when a gun doesn't do what you want it to do, it's never the same. Even it's the most expensive gun in the world. So you want that reliability as your mindset as well. So, hey, dude, just get another magazine. Put that blue tape on the side. Put a big T on it, meaning training. And call it a day. Your family will love you. So, that's my take on this episode. Leave the mag and take the block. It was something that came to my curiosity when I saw this video. And I'm not going to publish because I don't want to embarrass the person. But I guess we're trying to do a maintenance thing. And the guy was fumbling around with his camera and holding the magazine. And the spring popped out. No big deal. But it occurred to me, there are a lot of people that might try to do that and really don't know what they're doing. So there are some real good videos out there if you're looking to do that maintenance, especially the Glock store. Just put magazine, put the, what do they call it? The magazine disassembly tool video, and you can see, there's a nice little video on there and on how to take out the magazine, clean it, and do all those things you have to do. And even in that video, they tell you that you should also consider buying new ones whenever you have an issue with an old one. Whether you want to use that old one, that's on you, but you should consider upgrading at that point. They're made out of plastic. Even the metal ones, have issues. Told you my CZ, I didn't like the rattling when I first got it. And some people say, well, it was designed like that because you have to max it all out. And I really don't know what was wrong with it, but I do know that CZ upgraded their magazines. So it's not an issue for me anyway. So up next, my life. Episode 341, If I Perish, I Perish. As I said, we have the wellness segment of spiritual, and I'm going to dive into my life. Episode 341, If I Perish, I Perish. When will I post it? I have no idea. Whenever I have the time to do it. But you can follow our cycle of episodes, March 26th, CZP 10S. Remember, here it is right here. Here's my buddy right here. I've been driving you crazy with it. There it is right there. That's my buddy. $319. Shoots like a gem. It's like butter. Like butter. You can cycle that thing. Oh, God. Best gun ever. For me, at least. I have good ones. We got more. If you look at the list, you can go to RadarCopTac.com and hit the section that says podcast. You can see all the upcoming podcasts that come. I think it goes all the way to April 23rd. You want to see what shows are coming up. Okay. And lastly, before we cut out of here, as a reminder, if you are in the South Florida area and you're looking for good gun training, my buddy Amalo has AAA gun safety. It's AAA gun safety. He's down in Miami. He's giving classes on concealed and just basic classes. Great instructor. I highly recommend if you're in the South Florida area. If you're looking for the gunsmith, I know him. His name is Pistol Pete the Gunsmith, one of the greatest gunsmiths in this country. And his information is down the bottom of the show notes. But I'm not down in Miami. How am I going to give him my gun? Just give Pete a call. The information is on the bottom of the show notes. And he'll tell you legally how you can ship him your gun. He'll fix it to your specifications and send it right back to you legally as well. And if you are in New Jersey and you're looking for a CCW class, carrying concealed weapon that the state of New Jersey finally has allowed their citizens to take, and you're looking for maybe other courses that this phenomenal instructor, Kilo Sierra, better known as Karis, my buddy, teaches up in New Jersey, point shooting, and he also does qualification for retired officers and police officers if they want to get qualified annually. And that is Sepulveda Inc., Sepulveda Inc. You can look them up online, and you will thank me again. And if you're looking for wellness and you want to get into the spirit of things, OasisCreationsLV.net. That's OasisCreationsLV.net. I'm sorry. So we're wrapping it up here. We took a little trip down magazine lane. And I wanted to ask those questions because I want you to start thinking. You have to start thinking out of the box. And as simple as a thing of a magazine can cost you your life, if that magazine doesn't do what it was created to do. It's up to you, the shooter and the owner and the responsible Second Amendment member having that weapon to ensure that it's working. And that takes maintenance, that takes whatever ingenuity that you're going to use to make sure that your magazines are clean, dust, dirt, grime. It's on you. But if it does malfunction and you want to service it, I agree with you. And you can put it back into circulation. But I will tell you that I would rather put that back into training circulation and not carry situations. That's my 2 cents. As always, continue to pray for yourself because without you, we have nothing. Continue to pray for your family, your community, the law enforcement agencies that serve you. And most importantly, continue to pray for the United States of America. This is Alpha Mike, and I'll see you downrange.
Show me all right, what the heck? 4323, just 1322.